All right, looks like it's 5:30. If you could go green, that'd be wonderful. I guess it's up to me to call to order the public hearing today, September 9, for the Board of Public Works, starting at 5:30 promptly. And since Darren has all of the info, I'm going to send it right over to him, but I believe Melissa needs to do a call to order because she has a quorum of
Yes, I
City
just need
Council.
to call, a special call City Council. I'll take roll. Councilman Haycraft.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson. Councilman Cohen.
Here.
Councilman Phillips. Councilman Welch. Councilman Munger.
Here.
Mayor Lauderman.
Here.
You can call to order.
All right. Proceed if you will.
Let's jump right into it. Got a presentation that mirrors much of what I've already provided, but there's some folks here that may not have seen that. Appreciate everybody and their interest, and this is a tough call. First of all, we'd like to let you know that we're proposing a 15% increase. We have gone through and since we put the information out, inviting people to come, that we were looking at a 16% increase through some of the tightening of numbers and making sure that some assets and some of the projects were pushed further out. Great question for later. We're able to move that to 15%. We're still talking about a lot. A percentage portion will be in the fixed meter cost, and a portion will be in the per kilowatt cost. And it will be a little bit different across the board on those meter charges, etc. We'll get into it. So first of all, where is this coming from? When we pay our electric bill, we are a distributor. So we go out on the market and we buy electricity. We then take and we distribute it to every one of our customers. We pay in that bill three separate things. Number one, the first thing that we pay for is the electricity. This is a picture of our Prairie State Generation Plant. We actually buy it from them. This is a coal plant down in the bottom right. They actually have a coal mine that goes several miles, even deeper than that. They mine it right there on site. They bring it out and they put it into the generator. That is one of our, what I call a base load. In other words, it's running all of the time. We get approximately 20 megawatts of power every single day of the year. And then we buy above and beyond. But that is what provides us the electricity that you burn in your home, in your motors, at your work, those things. And so that's your kilowatt cost, is just how many of those electrons we burn, we provide to you. That is a cost that we have. It's pretty significant. The second thing we do is we've got to get it from the generators to you in your home. And there's transmission lines and then there's distribution lines. The transmission lines are not ours, but we participate in them. We go out on the market and every one of those lines that we see in the air, it's kind of like a pipe. And in that pipe, we buy a percentage of that so that we can get our percent of that power to us. It is not that simple. It's fairly complicated because we can buy a couple of lines or at least buy that percentage in there. It's called an FTR, financial transaction right. We start to get electricity moving through there, and pretty soon everybody wants to be at the same place, and it moves every single day because some people want a lot now and a little less here, and some more here and some there, and it's weather, how cold it is, how hot it is, how much work is being done, etc. And this transmission system becomes very robust, and actually that's not true. It's not robust. It's starting to lag behind. This is a look on the left. This is what an early look at the MISO area. I'll explain that in a minute. That transmission, those are all lines that are proposed. The one on the right is deeper, a couple of years out, what they're still trying to propose. But as they build one, you have to look at what's the generation on each point and what's the off-takers on each point. And it has to be balanced. It's not like water that you can fill up this system and have it overflow. Electric, you have to fill it up and keep it right at that top. If you put more generation in, you burn it up. If you take it out, the whole thing collapses. So we have to be very careful on that balancing. The third portion that we pay for is called capacity. And this is a little more difficult to I shouldn't say that. Hopefully I can explain it right so it's not difficult to understand. What is capacity? Capacity, the total amount of electricity generation versus the amount that's needed. So what happens is they go out and they look at our records, they look at every single person that distributes energy, and they measure the demand. We know that for us in the summertime, we need about 53 megawatts of power. And that's on the worst day when it's very hot and everybody's got their air conditioning working and the people are working. That's the demand. And then they look at generation. And for up to 3 years ago, we have always had more generation than demand. And then things have changed. So we are in each one of these areas throughout the nation. These are regional transmission organizations. They have the responsibility of not only making sure the power gets from point A to point B safely and appropriately, it's also their responsibility to make sure there's enough generation. So all of a sudden, this is turned upside down. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back one. Remember, PJM. We are MISO, Mid-Continental System Operators Group. PJM stands for Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland. Just keep that in the back of your mind. They're our neighbors to the northeast, okay? We are Zone 5. You take MISO and break it into Zone 5, into 10 zones. We are 5. It's only a portion of Missouri. But MISO goes out and they look at and do that measuring. The very first sentence there, fleet change is creating a gap. When they talk about fleet change, we know that we have nuclear generators, we've got coal generation, we've got natural gas generation. There's generation out there that's oil generation, there's solar generation, there's wind generation. All of that, every one of those generators get to be looked at. But there's a problem. There's installed capacity and there's accredited capacity. All of you have probably gone through the out here to Vandalia and you've seen a whole lot of solar getting put up. When it comes to solar, if they put up a 10 megawatt farm, that means in a good day the sun is shining, that's the nameplate, that's your installed capacity of 10 megawatts could be expected. But in that summertime peak when everything's happening, they only give them credit for 1.8 megawatts. So what we're doing with all of the renewables that are being put on the system more and more and more is we're taking that capacity and we're driving it down to where 3 years ago we had an offset. What happens when you have supply and demand go out of whack? What happens to the value of that supply? It increases. With that, this is taking a look at our pricing for capacity. Now this is in megawatt days. So for every one of those 53 megawatts that we buy in the summertime, we pay 53 times, in 2015, $3.48. Every single day, we paid that for 365 days of the year. In 2016, there was a scare, and I don't know what it was, but it went up to $72. That cost us $1.2 million. So that spiked. We paid it, we managed it, came back down. From then on, look at those numbers. We went from $72 to $1.50 to $10 to $2.99, then to $5, then to $5, 2023, 2024, and then today. What happened there is this last spring, it's at $719. So if that $72 cost us $1.2 million, we're looking at this $719. That's costing us right at $4.6 million. Now, that's what we've got to pay if we're going to have the power delivered to us. What happened and how did that hit? This is the historical capacity. 3 years ago, in 2023, it came in at about $200. It cost us $3.4 million. And what your board decided to do is we paid for that out of reserve funds. If you look back at our reserves, and that's what it's for, is to do just exactly that. We paid for it out of reserve funds. And our reserve came down by that 3.4. We were okay. We'll talk about the covenants that we have with our loan that we have taken out. So your board generously did this. And frankly, we said, yes, we can do it. We were out of compliance with our covenants for that year. We went to the next. And what we did is we hedged. We were able to go out and we were to buy capacity hedges at a price significantly less than that $200 mark, but it still ran us right around $2 million. We were okay. Until this last auction. And with that last auction, a couple of things have happened. So they also went to what's called a quarterly auction. Instead of doing it annually, where they would say, all right, what's the one day of the year that's the worst? That was summertime. That was the 53 megawatts. They've now broken it into seasons. One of the things that they do is that these coal generators specifically, and natural gas, all of these generators that have turbines that are spinning, that are mechanical, they take them and they take them offline. You have to maintenance them. You have to work on them and make sure everything's in compliance and doing so it runs, so it's reliable. What they did was a couple of things. Number one, there was a plant called Rush Island. The Sierra Club came and sued them and said, you guys have been out of compliance for so long, it's going to cost you $300 million to stay online, and they shut it down on October 15th. That took them entirely out of the auction. Summertime, if you look right there, I'm sorry, it's probably some eye strain for you in the back. The summertime capacity came in at $30. Fall, $719. Winter, 75 cents. And then we come back into spring at another $719. So we're having to pay this capacity for each of those 715 that averages out to be 15% of our current rates. So why did it happen? There's just another look. Everybody else in the entire system other than Zone 5 were able to stay with a much lower capacity. Our regular cost, which would have been $60,000 to $300,000 for our capacity charge, please note our electricity, we still pay about $19 million a year. We pay about $2 million in transmission, and then we have the capacity charge. We're looking at about $4.6 million this year on capacity. Now, where did it hit? This retired coal, that Rush Island hit us for a negative. We dropped 1,000 megawatts of power. This PO is planned outages exclusion. We had one or two of them that took the entire spring and fall and said, we're going to be out for the entire 3 months. That dropped them out to nothing. It was a negative. So we see that winter was okay, summer was okay, spring and fall not. Sorry. The local clearing requirement increased due to the higher demand and lower capacity import limit. They're also saying that they didn't have the wires to come in from Illinois or any of the other zones around us. And there's less capacity due to the retirement of coal units and planned maintenance. So the next item we have to look at, the other thing that's driving us to this increase, we have taken loans. One is called a lease. That's what we borrowed about $11 million so that we could do a upgrade on the tie line. We're also using that money to take care of the Oakwood substation. We're also using it to help us at the Indian Mound substation. All of those needed to be renewed and bolstered so that they can continue to provide you your electricity. We took that first out of reserve, that 3.4 million. Okay, and I hope that doesn't give you any comfort, but we have used the reserve the right way. We're operating like we should. But the reserves are not income. When it comes to that loan, it's just like when you buy your home. There's covenants that you sign. You make agreements when you buy that house that you're going to pay on time, that you're not going to do certain things. Well, in these covenants, this loan, it says we have to keep a debt service coverage ratio. They use this number to make sure that we're running their company like we should. If we don't have enough revenue coming in, there's a chance that we can't pay our bill. And so Paul's going to get into more of that. Sorry, I throw him right under the bus. He's going to get into more detail for you. But this says we've got to have a little more revenue coming in than we have debt. And that number is 1.25. The debt service ratio is 1.25. The covenant, the 15% increase is expected to meet that ratio. So that is another reason we need to have this rate increase. Paul will also tell you there's some scary things that happen if we do not meet it. We have not met it since we did the 3.4 million. Now, as we put that money in there, that money from reserve is not counted as revenue. That's the way the accounting works. I'll throw rocks at the accountants all over every time, but we can't take it again. It will not count as revenue if we take it from the reserve to put it in there. We will still remain out of compliance with that covenant. Now, some of these questions are questions that we received on the internet. We put this out. We've tried to advertise to everybody. We've tried to be as transparent as possible. Thank you to all of you that are here. So customer charge, why is it doubling? That's what was out there. We're going to double our customer service charge. Well, that's a lie. We're not. There's fixed costs versus commodity costs. Just like we've got things that we're going to have to pay for, whether we sell 1 kilowatt of power or 1 million. We have employees. We have trucks that they drive. We've got derrick trucks. We've got digger trucks. We've got equipment so that we can go do our job. If we don't sell any kilowatts today, I can't just go out and fire them and then rehire them the next day when we need them. There are fixed costs. That's what that meter charge is for. I've got meter readers. I've got meters. I've got all those things that we have to look at to run this business. Those are fixed. We're looking at adding $1.75 to your meter charge, to your customer service charge. Currently, for residential, it is $23.25, so that will move it up to $25. We must have that. We've got to keep it because we have things we can't just get rid of every other day. That is equipment, employees, assets, etc. And the demand charge is a mix in the residential. If we were to make the perfect rates for everybody, we would have 8,250 electric rates for every person because it differs a little bit. Who hits the demand? Are you actually home at lunchtime when it's hot in the summertime and you were using all your electricity and so you helped make the demand go up while your neighbor, he wasn't there, he was out in the hills fishing and he didn't use any? It would differ, but we take and make assumptions. And so that customer charge is to help keep us on the fixed costs while the remainder is going to be on that purchase power. So of the 15% rate that we're proposing, 14.9% of that is all on the power purchase. I'm not getting a raise. There's not a single employee here getting a raise. There's not any money going to enrich anybody at the Board of Public Works. Mr. Bowen.
August 29th, BPW makes a post saying that the customer charge is going to go to $43.25. Is that not correct?
That is not correct. That's what did you see that?
Yeah, but it was
So I'm
That's-
sorry.
That's what it says here.
That's okay.
I just
I'm
looked
sorry.
at it today, it's on there.
Yeah, August 29th, BPW made a big
Help
old
us out
post.
there. What is that?
54 comments, 54 shares, that says 43.25 for customers.
Yep, that's correct. We'll get to it when we talk about.
Remember, we
Well,
run,
which is it then?
remember, we run three,
Hey, let them go through what they're doing and then they'll,
remember, we run three utilities.
otherwise you'll never get through this.
We run three utilities, correct?
Thank you for taking my question.
You bet. There's three utilities. This is the electric. Okay? We'll get to it. This happens to be electric bill from a neighbor to our north. They touch us. This happens to be their meter charge for electric. It's electric only. You can look at their consumption charges as well. We are well below that as well. Here's another utility that's to the east of us. If you look at their charge, you can look at some of the other taxes and charges, another $12 there. Yes,
What are the sources, like what county is the county to our north?
Rawls,
Rawls is south, right?
yes. This one's near the Quincy area. How's that? So these are the neighbors around us. Now, another one of the questions. Answer a couple questions. Where are the top 5, 10 things you're actively working on to reduce our rates? How much of these initiatives saved in the last 36 months? I assume you're working on cost savings each fiscal year. I will tell you that the last sentence is absolutely true. There's an assumption in this question that we're running around fat and sassy. I will tell you that we have been operating a tight ship. And so for us to go out and say, we're just going to go fire some people, or let's just quit doing this or that, we are running a tight ship. We do it every single year. We have a budget process where we go through and we look, and we're not out to try and gouge anybody. Here's some of the things we've done. Full-time staff have been reduced by not filling positions. 7 open. We've lost about 11 actually in total. 4 of them have been replaced with different positions. Again, we're looking at full-time employees. We're doing the best we can to provide you the services you demand. We're looking at the AMI metering. It's been going on, but we still have to have people to run that. But it in and of itself brings efficiencies where we don't have to go turn people off. We don't have to go turn some of them on. We're able to do a lot of those things because of the AMI. We also have improved efficiencies, but we also have 8,200 of them out there. And so there's some of them that are failing. So we still have to have technicians that go out and maintain that system. We've enrolled in long-term maintenance agreements, Marco, etc. I will provide you some flesh on that. We will take, and we're looking at third-party services. We're taking some of them back in-house, where we have the skills to do some of the maintenance and some of the work on trucks, etc. We do that where we can do it in-house cheaper. We do it. If we can't, we take it out. But we're looking at and assessing that all the time. We're looking at equipment replacement, purchases, where we continue to look at seeing if we can get the life out of things. There's some things we can, some things we can't. Computers, you want to take and get as much life out of them, and yet there is obsolescence that the industry itself has put into it where you can't keep going. We have a very heavy IT requirement. We have SCADA systems that run our electric department. We have different that runs water and sewer. We have to make sure that there's no IT cybersecurity issues that we must maintain for our insurance requirements. We also maintain a whole lot of your information that we've got to keep safe. And to have that breached is not a fun thing. It is not something we're going to have happen. I was at a utility when that happened. It is 10 times more expensive to do that. IT is not something you want to skimp on. And yet we're pushing it and making it as efficient as we can. Our investments, we have taken, and yes, you've got to give full credit to the change in the world and the nation and how that's going on bonds, et cetera. But Paul does an exceptional job of making sure that all of our investment, that reserve fund, is getting a return as much as we can. He does that on a regular basis. We're being as tight as we can there. Training, we have reduced it, and I'll show you a little more about that later. We used to have about 182,000. Well, now from 2021 to present is 66,000. We've tightened that up. We make sure. Now, do we need it? Yes. We have operators that must maintain certifications. We would not be able to run a water treatment plant. We would not be able to run a wastewater treatment plant. We would not have crews out in the sewer. We would not have them in the water distribution system. All of those require certifications. All of those certifications require CEUs, continuing educations. So yes, we need to have this. We look at tree trimming. We had gone through 5 years ago aggressively. We wanted to trim the trees, especially in the right-of-ways. It's expensive, yes, but we believe it has absolutely paid off. We can see that we have already taken, we used to have 3 crews this year. We've dropped it by 1, which saved us $200,000. We look at, we'll go to the bottom, I'll show you more. Administration, one of the other things to look at is that the administration of ourselves, our accounting, our collections, our general admin, 50% of it is paid by electric, 25% of it is paid by water, 25% of it is paid by the sewer departments. So there's a savings per department all the way through. And you've got some administrative staff that are exceptionally capable of wearing multiple hats to make this work and work very professionally. Reduction in overtime. We have worked at being as proactive as possible. We plan, we look at our weaknesses, we improve upon them, we measure them, and we count them. And we keep that cycle up again and again and again. So to say, what have we done lately? We continue to do those very same things. What are the successes? We look at our sewer. The number of overflows, when I got here, we were having about 4 to 5 a month. With videoing, cleaning, you then find cracks, you have problems. We can take and fix them with CIPP, cured in place pipe. And with that, that repairs them without us having to dig it up. It saved us immense amounts of money. But it's also reduced the amount of significant sewer overflows, SSOs. With that, our overtime in that department has gone way down. We still have one. We have a little less than 1 a month. We look at the water loss. We're working on that intensely. We have a large number. There should be about 12% of our water going out that's not accounted for. Our number is higher than that. We have got people come in to find leaks, the small leaks. We've repaired those leaks. We see the efficiency of that improving. We've got more to do. I promise you, that's one you can kick me in the shins, but we're going to get there. Finally, come back to your tree trimming. Emergency recovery costs. In 2021, we had $275,000 in recovery costs. We had some storms go through. In 2022, $217,000. In 2023, zero. In 2024 so far is zero. Now, is that a function of storms? Absolutely. But I believe in the last year and a half, we've still had some straight winds come through here. We've had some pretty good storms. We've had some hailstorms come through. And we still end up with zero on that recovery. And some may say, well, that's not cutting today. Well, if you want to back off on that tree trimming, I believe those costs will come right back up. And I believe those are costs that we should get credit for. That we're running that tight ship. Now, there's also some expenses beyond our control. When we look at that 0.1% that might go into that fixed cost, we still live with inflation. And again, I'm going to come to tell you that we're doing a dang good job. We've had this inflation hit us, and we've come to you with very nominal increases on the others. We have followed the increases that were agreed to by the community when the GAC was put into place. With that, we see chemicals, so inflation in and of itself, if you look at what the inflation is the last 3 years, you'll see that it's quite significant. I'll show it to you in a second. Chemicals at the water treatment plant, up 115% in 5 years. At the wastewater treatment plant, 71% in 4 years. Transformers, what used to be $890 4 years ago are now $4,250. That's a 4-time increase. And those are the basic transformers that we put on homes. These aren't big ones. These are little ones. The wires, the poles, everything has gone up. Property insurance, health insurance, supply chain. The other problem that we get into is that if we do some of those larger transformers, some of those things are more expensive. When I say more expensive, what may have been $800,000 5 years ago, they're now running at $1.5 million, and you have a 52 to 2 to 3 year wait for them to be delivered. Those are the things, and how do you plan for that? We have to have the monies in place to plan for it, and that's what we're doing. So we're planning, looking forward. We have those capital improvements to look forward to. Expenses beyond our control. This comes from the Western Area Power Administration. That's one of those areas to the southwest of us, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, those areas. They're looking at an 18 to 30% baseline increase in inflation in bulk electrical material and equipment. That was written 2024. What are we also doing in-house? We're trying to communicate with you. You can help for yourself if we can peak shave at all. Erica's done a great job of reaching out when we have hot days, and it doesn't just have to be here. In other words, if we're in all zone 5 and we've got stuff down in St. Louis or Kirkwood or Fulton or some of those areas, Columbia, when that heat goes up there, prices go up. So does that demand. We can take our own demand and pull it down and help you save money in the long run. Problem is, it's a year out. And so when you're doing good things today, you're not going to see it until 12 months later. And that's tough. We're impatient. We send these out whenever there's an alert. We also give ideas on how to save money, how to reduce that just 2 degrees when it's nice and hot, 2 degrees up when it's nice and cold. And we have some conservation tips you can find. Now, what's in the future? This is from MISO. They're simply saying that we're looking at this gap in the capacity to continue to widen. Then 2025, it's going to grow larger. We're looking at 2.1 gigawatt gap coming forward. We look at the supply, 2005 to 2020. That was what our mix is in our zone, in the MISO. The black is coal. You can see the coal goes from 76% in 2005 to 3 to 7% in 2030. That coal is going away. That sure capacity is going to be gone. We look at the blue, natural gas. It's going to kind of take over 55 to 45%. That's going to be heavy. We anticipate that with the current government that they want to go carbon neutral, and they are looking at natural gas, and perhaps there's going to be an attack on natural gas even because of that carbon neutral stance. Something to pay attention to, but just think about if they do to coal what they did to coal to natural gas. Where are you going to be besides the dark? So you're going to have the green, your wind and your solar, that's increasing and increasing. Those don't bring any capacity to the table. So what we're seeing is capacity is going to continue to shrink while demand will stay the same or grow. And so those are things that unfortunately are beyond our control. This is a look at wind, how that even wind, while solar gets 18%, wind only gets 18%, and they're saying it's going to and ultimately start to curve down instead of up. This is from the newspaper. This was August 12th of this year. This is where Illinois, because Prairie State is in the state of Illinois, they just had a ruling that says now Sierra Club can come and sue them. So our base load coal plant is going to be coming under more acute attack. This is that PJM. Remember, they're to our northeast. Are we the only ones in trouble? You notice that, unfortunately, good old Zone 5, Missouri, we got whacked in the MISO zones. This is PJM. This is the entire RTO. All of PJM, which has about 13 states represented, some in whole, some in part, they're looking at it's kind of small. They're going from 2.2 billion in capacity charges to 14.7 billion. That's a 6.6 multiplier increase. This was come out August 29th, 10 days ago. PJM looking forward to next year's auction, 157% increase from there. So that 14.2 billion, what's that, run it up to 21 billion that they're going to be taking and shouldering because of capacity. This is the Grain Belt. Grain Belt Express is where they take wind in Kansas and they're going to take it over to Indianapolis, Indiana, hopefully. And that's me saying hopefully, but they've got to take and put a power line from there to there. That power line comes just about across our front door, except you've got legal issues where people in Missouri have said we don't want it in our backyard, and so there's legal actions there. This is in the state of Illinois. It comes across us, then it goes across Illinois, then it goes into Indiana. Illinois has said, you now have the right, we're going to let you come to court because we're going to pull your permit because we don't think you have the money to build it. So that's a court case that's coming in. So we're trying, even when you're trying to get renewables in, we're getting an uphill battle just to get it there. This is a look at the availability, limited imports. One of the things that happened to us in that capacity auction is they said, in that really hot day, we're not going to be able to put wire, there's not enough wire to get the power to you. And if you look at this, summertime, it was 6,022, 23, it came down to 3,500, 24, down to 3,000. That was part of that was Rush Island. Rush Island is getting constructed. There's some things with lines, et cetera, being changed where they're anticipating that the import capabilities will go up. But again, building lines is a negative for us right now. We need to build more. This is a look at that inflation I told you about. And this is also a look at our past rate increases. We've done a very tight job in 2014. Not until 2015 we had a 5% increase. 2017 a negative 0.62%. Not until 2023 did we have our 9.5%. And yes, that was difficult. We didn't want to do it, but that's what we had to do. And we felt we were going to hit that reserve, that capacity, or the requirement of the 1.25, but because that capacity came in high, it pushed us out again. And in order for us to get us 15, we anticipate that there, in those years, we have a 30.55% overall increase in inflation, while even with the 15, we're at 28.88. Doesn't give you comfort, but I believe it still shows that we're being tight, that we're not being extravagant here.
But Darren,
Yeah.
can I ask you this? I don't have the inflation numbers, but in 2010, 8% between electric, water, and sewer. 2011, 8% in water. 2012, 3% in electric. 2013, 7% across electric, water, and sewer.
Okay?
So, I mean, those are a couple years ahead of 2014, but those are also some big numbers.
Yeah, I didn't go back that far. Thank you. So, someone had a question. How much of that increase in demand is due to EVs? Are they a contributor? Where are they? This will be very quick. So we believe we have very small. I don't think there's a lot of people in Hannibal that have those EVs. We have down at Casey's, we've got the Tesla chargers there, they pay for it. I don't believe we have a whole lot of input or harm to us right now. One of the struggles is that we can't track them. One of the struggles even for the city is if you're going to repair roads, if you're going to fix roads, there's a gas tax. That's where you pay for your roads, is through your gas tank, right? At the gas pump. If your EVs never go there, but they just drive on your roads, what are they paying to upkeep your roads? They're not.
Pay a yearly gas tax.
What's that?
EVs pay a yearly tax.
Awesome. That's where they pay it. I didn't know that, but I don't know who they are.
$450, $500. Sorry if that's not exactly right, but they do pay a gas tax.
Very good. But it's an internal thing. We don't see that as a great influence or harm to any of us to date. Electrification and decarbonization, that has a huge impact. That's why our coal is being taken offline, taken off early, why it's getting retired. I think that's something you ought to look at. Governmental attack on coal, we're paying for it today. That started many years ago. NIMBY, not in my backyard, transmission lines, and external influences that are beyond our control is what's made this happen. We tell you that simply your activism, your communication with your legislators, etc., you would be a great benefit if you let that be known that this isn't the way you want it to go. So you made huge profits in 2022, raising electric rates to the tune of $5 million. 1 year later, you decreased the fund, and you guys are just making money hand over fist. What about the millions you waste on the generators? Here's what happened with the generators. In 2016, we bought 2 generators. In 2017, we bought 8 more. With that, from peaking demand generation, it came to the point where they said, we're not making any money. It's not saving us because those peaking, the demand charges were so small, the capacity charges. So we sold them. We sold them in 2022. That $5 million represents the sale of those. And we ended up making approximately $1.8 million on that. That went into the reserve. That reserve was what was used to help pay that $3.4 million. If you want to look at our financials, we have every single year audited finance report that you can go through and comb through. And if you got questions from that, I'll again throw Paul right under the bus, and he will be available to you to answer any and all of those questions. But I will tell you, it's to the T. It's to the penny. We know where the dollars have been. We know where they're going and what we've purchased and where it's gone. Yes?
Did you sell those at the wrong time? Would that not have been capacity? That's what they were bought for.
Absolutely.
And I know it went right in the dumper right after they bought them. But you sold them before capacity. You could have made something off of it.
That's beautiful. Your point is beautifully perfect. Thank you. Yes, when we sold them, that was a good deal. We made money. But if we'd had them today, where would we be? So we've gotten to where in the electric industry, nobody's got a crystal ball. I will tell you, I'm going to take, as the general manager, I have to take all the information I can gather. The more information I can get, the better. And then I make the very best decision I can. And I guarantee you, I'm going to piss off half of you, and I'll make half of you maybe happy. Because you don't know what's in the future. But we're going to do the best we can with the information we have at the time. And we know that. So you make all these decisions and no one gets any input. We're the ones who get to suffer because of it. Well, I thank all of you for being here. While there's many from the city, etc., those of you that are the citizens, thank you. We are here every single month. We are here at the first Monday, the third week. Okay? First Monday, that's terrible. The third Monday of every single month, we're here. It's at 4 o'clock. These are your council members. These are our board of directors. They report to you. They have been appointed by our city mayor and city council through the city manager. They are appointed, and they are your voice. They are the ones holding our feet to the fire every single month, every single day. This is how you contact them. On our website, you can click on that contact, and you can get them. John's our president. You got Bill, who's our vice president. You got Daryl, who's our new secretary, and Kelly, who's a board member. All 4 of them will listen to you. They bring their concerns and questions to us all the time. Sometimes it gets hot, feel like I'm getting grilled. It's the way it is. Now, another question from the internet. The coal-powered production is decreased. Where do you buy the additional energy from? Solar, wind, nuclear, what do you do? All of that mix we get to pull from. We have our Prairie State base load that we purchased, 20 megawatts. Everything above that, what we do is we have a consultant that goes to the day-ahead market. This is, I know it's an eyeball, this is what I see every single day. Our people, the day ahead, right now, today, we've gone out and we've purchased X amount of energy for tomorrow. And they go on this market and everybody puts in their dollar, they put in their offers. And we say, all right, we'll take that one, that one, that one, that one, and we get the kilowatts. And by the time it gets to you, you don't know what electron came from a nuclear, from a coal, from a gas, from solar. You don't know. But all of that is compiled and put into one. There's real time, then the next day. This shows you that the blue line is what we bought the day ahead. Well, every once in a while you have those spikes. This is when we had an outage perhaps on a line that's down in Kirkwood, or we had something that was too hot in Fulton, and that provided a demand, so that price goes up. But we get the differential, and this is our bill every single day. That big blue on top, and I apologize, I'm mostly colorblind, so if I'm telling you if that's purple, whatever. The big one on top, that's what we purchased a day ahead. The red is the real time. We still have to pay for that much that we didn't hedge. And then the little light green, that's the transmission. Often it's just so small you don't see it, but when there's congestion, then it starts to pop. And we sometimes see it above the line, below the line. Please notice there's a zero there. That means that above the line we're paying, and that below the line we're actually making. So there's been a question out there, is Prairie State worth a damn? Apologize. Is it worth anything? That yellow on the bottom there is Prairie State, because our consultants can take Prairie State, we get that power, and they say, you know what, if we sell it over here, we can get it and deliver it to them. It's a shorter transmission line. You get yours at a short transmission. The differential is X, and it approves it. Now, that's not always there. Sometimes that Prairie State is above the line. Sometimes it's below. It depends on the day. But for the most part, Prairie State has absolutely been an exceptional contract, and we're lucky to have it, especially going forward. And we don't want it to go away. That's a great benefit to us.
It's not the most expensive power that we have in the portfolio then?
It is not. It is not.
It used to be.
It used to be. But see how it swings like I said, sometimes it'll be up, sometimes down. There's so many variables in this, but having that consistency, that we know that sucker's right there, that it's paid off for us.
Are they doing 85% online now?
Right now, we're at 90%. Last fiscal year was 88.
They're getting better.
Yep, better and better. And had we not had the capacity credit from Prairie State in that last auction, the 20 megawatts, at $4.6 million that we're paying for capacity would have been $7.4 million.
So this is another look. That's an entire month. The 90.7, that was actually a charge going into from Rush Island that we had to pay to keep Rush Island on as long as it was on. That charge is going to drop off in another month. Okay. We are seeking for both immediate and long-term capacity in Zone 5. The last year we did buy capacity in Zone 4. That's Illinois. We got credit for that because of this new capacity market. We had hedged in Zone 4. They said it will not count because of the limitations of the power line. And it was purely on paper, but we have those stranded assets that we're trying to get that to be at least a wash. So we'll get that back, but we don't get any credit. So we're looking for capacity in Zone 5 for this coming year. We feel like we've got some pretty good leads. I have a moderate optimism that we're going to be able to bring rates down next year. And with that, I show you the second line. We will get it secured and at a lower price. We will if we get it secured and at a lower price, we will lower rates accordingly. This is a pass-through amount. This is paying for electricity. If we can get it cheaper, we're going to lower it till you get that to you. We're not going to keep it up there if it doesn't stay up there. And then we're also looking seriously at being self-reliant on generation. That is not a quick fix. And it comes right back to your question. Today, this is the right thing. This is what we need. And there'll be days when John, you'll call me bad names just because it was the bad decision, the wrong time that day. But the next day it'll be good. And so it's tough to find out what's that perfect thing to do. We have to go with the best information. Okay, I've got some more here. I'm going to go quick. Kelly brought us some questions. I believe we'll try and get these for everybody involved in it. What staff was reduced in 2023-24 budget year? Over 15 years of living down, we operate with planning, succession planning, and working to provide the BPW vision. This is our vision up here. We want to provide you safe, reliable electricity at a reasonable price with great customer service. If we were to take a look at, we're looking at this 4.6 million increase. If I were to fire everybody, every single one of my linemen today, we still wouldn't cover that. So we want to provide you with a return to service if your power's out within 30 minutes. Is that too good? You want us to lengthen that out? There's other utilities out there that will only return your power on a day during the working hour day, so there's no overtime, etc. I believe we have done an exceptional job of providing exceptional service. It takes people to do that. And so, what do we do? We do it each and every year. Draconian cups will end up bringing less responsiveness and reliability. AMI, meters have been in place for years. Deferring the hardship on ratepayers would need to be date. What's that question? I need clarification on the question.
Are you looking at me?
Yeah.
So
I apologize. Just think about it. I really would like, there's a couple of them here that I'd like clarification on, and then I'll try and get it to you. Enrolling long-term agreements with Marco. Why on earth, what good are all those things? Let's talk about IT. I'm going to read this to you. Sorry it's long, but I'm going to do it. I'll do it fast. HPPW has several relationships with service and technology providers. As an example, we recently migrated all software and hosting responsibilities for our AMI and Customer Information System, CIS, to the vendors. As stated, the relationship with Marco, as well as other service providers, has been long-term. As the demand for technology has continued to increase, the demand for more technical ability has also increased. Computers haven't gotten easier for us, especially for what we have. Service providers, consultants, contractors, etc., provide their skill set and knowledge where our internal staff falls short. It would be cost prohibitive to have an employee with the vast skills of many of our contractors. The ability to have additional oversight and expertise when it comes to the various security and compliance issues that our organization must meet merits these relationships. The services provided by Marco or any other service provider would still be necessary regardless of if they were supported internally or externally. Regarding the question raised about the hiring of a second IT person, this has been discussed and attempted for several years, but budget and timing could not be achieved. Our IT needs are different than other entities of the city. In fact, we had a second IT staff member from 2010 to 2014. The main reason was to allow this current IT staff member to begin to share duties and responsibilities and begin to educate replacement, since the senior member will soon be eligible for retirement. Due to the complexity of our environment, it was management's decision to hire someone to allow ample time for cross-training. The new hire also brings Geographic Information System, GIS, knowledge that has allowed us to move this back in-house versus a hosted and contracted relationship, which will allow for other benefits in the future. we have some pretty significant IT requirements. Our IT guy is the best in the land, but even he can't keep up with the myriad of systems that we have to have. IT equipment replacement, claimed savings. When was this implicated? Where are these savings in the budget? We did not proceed with any regularly scheduled IT equipment replacement during the pandemic shutdown. This would include personal computing equipment, network switching, security infrastructure, and printers. Since 2021, we have been slowly attempting to get back on our life cycle replacement plans. Specific devices will be replaced this year and next due to age or obsolescence. Some have been pushed to the following year. However, there is a need to have allocated funds on hand in the event of premature failure or unplanned vendor obsolescence. The unplanned vendor obsolescence is a very real thing. We have meter reading, we have computers that take all of that into account. Just like you have Windows 2, then 3, then 0.7 and 0.8, 0.9, they do the same thing to us. And in order for us to continue to read meters and to do our job, to continue to have our SCADA work, we have to keep those up to date as well. And unfortunately, there's cost to that. Asset replacement. What specifics have we pushed off? Business park improvements. We are currently pushing that off. We believe that there might be an option of that being sold, and therefore we have not done any. We had some last year. We pushed it off. Facility improvements. We have things inside. If you look, we're kind of like having 50 pounds of potatoes in a 25-pound bag. We've had some ideas and some things that would help improve our safety, being able to get in and out and be able to serve people. We have put those off. SCADA, communication radio replacement, not conducted last year. However, the system was deemed obsolete in 2016, but recent RFP responses came in higher than anticipated, almost twice as much. So as we miss those renewal dates, they get you later and later and later. They're going to still charge you. IT vulnerability assessment, slated for last year, but budget and time did not permit it to be completed. Electric tie line, slated 2023, postponed. We're still looking for a grant to cover that, but we were able to push it off a year. 34.5 kV loop upgrades, moved from 24.5 to 25.26. Indian Mound substation, we are still moving forward with that, but we are pushing that out again that the completion date moved to 25-26. Those are all specific projects that we have pushed off to reduce the burden of this year. Here's the question about training. The question is, training 2021's president is going more remotely. Thank you, it is. What specific training trips this budget has staff played? This is 2018 on the left. This is 2024 on the right. We will send you, Kelly will send you a copy and all the board that shows which ones were done in-house, which ones were not. There are some of them because of treatment plants and some of the people in the field, they have to be in place. They've got to be there in person to do some of those trainings. There's also a lot of things that are moving when it comes to the industry in and of itself. And so this training is essential. Every one of our people have certain trainings. The people in the office, we have an NISC system, which they have to be able to maneuver in and make sure it's working right and they get things in the right place. They get training as well. All of this training, and again, we've gone from 182,000 a year down to 66. We're also making sure that when they come back now, they come back and they do reports so that we see what did they learn? What do we need to implement? And we're implementing things as we're learning. So again, that continual access and continual improvement, that's what we're doing. Claim reduction overtime calls. This should not be called a cut. I disagree. The fact that we have been able to, with the proper spending and assets, when they do their job, you reduce the amount of time people have to do the work. When we have a solid system, we don't have to send people out to fix it. That is true both of the electric, it's of the water, it's of the sewer, And so when we are able to say, look at, we are taking, and because of our efforts in tree trimming, we're able to keep the lights on. This last time we had an outage, why? Because some guy was out there with a chainsaw cutting down a tree. Had nothing to do with the wind, but it shows the value of the tree trimming we're doing. Income debt ratio. Paul's going to talk about that. Price comparison. Been warned of the past 3 years since the Texas incident. It has not happened. It may happen, but if it does, do we not have the reserves to operate the utility and then seek an increase to cover the loss and cost? We have a reserve. And I'm thankful, I know Darrell, the last meeting, recognized that, we've got a reserve, we've got to keep them at the right level. It's important that we have that. We still could have a heck of a tornado come through and tear things up, and we'll have to pay for that and make it happen. And we need to do it timely. And so proper reserves, we need to have them. The other thing that we've looked at is if we had the proper reserves, we could do less of the base load purchase, maybe that higher $55 power that's here and there, and be able to take and run only on the day ahead, which is the cheapest possible if we had the reserve that would manage that. Those are thoughts that we have on the management side to help reduce your costs going forward. City-owned utility is supposed to be an asset to the community. I'll let you read that on your own. I think that's just more of a statement. I would hope that when you do leave here, that you actually have some trust and faith in us. Yes, our rates are going to have to go up. And frankly, it stinks. This is not fun one bit. But I believe that we have worked hard to earn your trust and your loyalty, and that we bring nothing but good to you, and that you can rely on us. What is the actual number we need to be at the debt ratio? 1.25. The charges are a $1.75 increase. We have asked for some other increases. One is for late fees. We want to actually, there's times when we do have to send someone out to go collect things. When we do that, there's a vehicle, there's an employee, we're taking away from other job duties, and I believe we're going from 20-something to $50? You'll get into it. He's going to cover that. But on one hand, we don't want to put anybody in hardship. However, we've got all of you that pay your dues, that pay your utility bill on time. Should you be carrying those people that don't? So we believe it's fair. Okay? These are all questions and statements I received along with printout. Check register. Here's a good one. Pizza and donuts. The check register showed that we had an expenditure of pizza and donuts. Let me read from you from our union contract. This is section 4.01. We have a union. That is a union for all of our employees of the electric, water, and sewer. It says, payroll deduction of dues for a fee. The HBPW shall provide automatic payroll deductions for the employee's IBEW collection fee of 2% of the total amount deducted. This 2% collection service shall be transferred into the employee activity fund, privately managed by applicable HBPW employees. The employee activity fund shall be used to sponsor various activities for all HBPW employees. They take from their dues for their union, 2% of it goes into a fund. They have an activity fund, and then they get to pay themselves to have a lunch once in a while. And so this is, and frankly, I've talked to our board. I have said it kind of stinks that we're taking money from them to give them a party. Does that feel like appreciation to you? I will tell you that buying them some pizza or a dozen donuts is an appropriate thing to give to our people to tell them that they're appreciated. Now, this goes through that activity fund. But I will tell you that doesn't, I think we can have, they spend probably $500 on a luncheon for 80 people. I don't think it's extravagant. We don't do it very often. I think it's appropriate. So I don't believe this is something that's breaking the bank. And I think it's the way to run a good company.
Darren, is there a separate fund for that? Because I'm seeing this under the administration fund, not a union activity fund. And I'm looking at $513 for ice cream, $137 for donuts, $281 for pizza. I don't disagree with you. I pay for pizza for
Was that out of, I'm looking at you, Erica. I believe that was actually out of our PR fund, and that was for the Bring Your Kids to Work Day. So, yes.
So I don't have a problem with that. I think it's great. I think it's great
Thank
to
you.
recognize hard work in our employees. We have to manage our utility, and if we are not financially sound, those things have to be looked at being reduced or cut back.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I mean, we got to live within our means.
You got it. Thank you.
So
I'm done. This stinks, everybody. We do not look forward to taking and giving you a 15% increase. We do not look forward to it one bit at all. But I believe we're sailing a tight ship, and again, I hope that we can earn and keep your trust, and that we're not fiddling around and being untoward with any of the dollars.
Awesome, thank you, Darren. I think we need to move right to rates and fees because there's lots of comments and conversation that wants to happen right after that. If you would.
All right, yep. So thank you, everybody, again for coming. Like Darren mentioned, we are a municipally owned utility, and so you do have your representatives sitting here. So it's great to see everybody here. To clarify, first off, we came to the board last month with a proposed. Oh, yeah, please. With a proposed schedule of rates and fees that was designed to recover that revenue from the capacity that we were seeing for next fiscal year. In that proposed schedule, that was put together at the time that we put our budget together earlier this year. We did have 50% of that new revenue allocated to the fixed customer charge. So somebody had said it earlier about the customer charge initially being proposed to increase to $43. That was correct. The board knows this, but we have been working with Utility Financial Solutions, a rate consultant, on a cost of service study that basically looks at all of our current customer classes and then make sure that the revenues that we are obtaining from each of our classes are appropriately allocated. So that cost of service to serve each customer class is being offset with the revenue that's coming in from your rate structure. Matthew's getting me going here, but we received late last week a preliminary cost of service study from UFS that looked at all the information that we have available at this time. Based on the increase in capacity, they put together a presentation for us. They are at a conference this week, so they're not able to present it for us, but I do have it here. I think that's ready to go. And additionally, they put together an actual rate design. And so the proposed schedule of rates and fees that you have before you tonight is based off of the recommendations of UFS. And so, again, as Darren said, we have a puzzle here of needing $3.6 million in order to maintain compliance with our covenants. And how do we go about obtaining or setting those rates and so that we can maintain that compliance? I'll go through this very quickly. Basically, this is our current situation where we're at without any rate adjustment. You can see there a negative debt coverage ratio projected of negative 2.8. Obviously, a very low adjusted operating income, of almost $4 million loss there. And we see our reserves decrease from where they're at today of just over $11 million in the electric fund to just over $6 million. The far right column there is our recommended minimum cash. That is based on the policy that was set by the board years ago that looks at a myriad of factors that we'll get into here in a second. Here's some of the basic assumptions that they used in their study. We do have an inflation factor in there, as well as negative growth for the city of Hannibal of 1%. This dates back about 5 or 6 years now, and the trend that we've seen. Some of that is due to efficiencies, but a lot of that is just that we haven't had a lot of new growth in town. We've got our purchase power change expected in there for the current fiscal year, as well as going forward, and then investment income. So This is looking at that debt coverage ratio, again, just in a different form. You can see there that UFS recommends a 1.4 coverage ratio. Obviously, if you shoot for 1.25 every year and you end up right at the end of the year at 1.23 or 1.19, you're not going to meet it. And so you do have to have a little bit of cushion there to give your bondholders some assurance there. That's the same look, except looking at the minimum cash reserve. And so the board set that policy based on UFS recommendations years ago. They factor in things such as our O&M annually. Our purchase power expense is obviously a big factor. The capacity charges that we pay to Prairie State annually. Our historical rate base, which is all the assets that we have out in our system. Our current portion of the debt service that we pay every year. And then lastly, our 5-year capital improvement plan. All of those factors and the percentages are allocated to make up that minimum cash reserve that you would need to maintain a quality fund, a quality utility. So the minimum cash reserve levels are down there. They hover right around $12 to $13 to $14 million a year. So being an electric utility, any utility is very asset intensive. We have several assets out in the system. Right now, our electric fund sits at about $27 million of assets. And so obviously every year you have to plan to replace those assets. And so being a not-for-profit entity does not mean that we should break even every year because of that need for asset replacement. Good example is our Indian Mound substation. That substation went into service in the late 1960s, early 70s. And at that time, we'd hoped to get maybe 40 years out of a substation. That's kind of what you shoot for. Obviously, we're at 50 years or a little over. That substation back in the 60s would have cost much, much less than what it would cost to replace today. And so each year you have to have a rate of return that's in excess of zero or break even in order to maintain that asset replenishment year after year. And so we have that factored in as well. Okay, so this is the rate track that UFS has put together for us. Obviously, Darren mentioned the 15% rate increase for this fiscal year. They have that projecting a debt coverage ratio for us of 1.44. The projected cash balance goes from $6.1 million to about $8.9 million. One thing I will point out is this utility funded capital, $5.4 million does seem pretty high. Why don't we put some of those projects off? Well, I will tell you about half of that does represent that Indian Mound substation. That lease that we took out of $11 million that Darren mentioned, we are required to use that funding for the Indian Mound substation. And so we're projecting about $2.5 to $3 million needed to complete that substation. Outside of that, we do have some projects that we're going to be able to put off out of that utility funded capital number. And so we might be able to see that projected cash balance number go up. But again, capital funding has nothing to do with the debt service coverage ratio that's required. It's simply a cash payment that you would make for capital, but it doesn't have anything to do with revenue coming in or expenses going out. That's the end of that presentation. If we drill down here into the actual rate design that they put together, again, you've got this in front of you, and it does vary greatly from what we presented a month ago. But first, we'll look at residential. And before we get into that, this is our revenues projected for next year under our current rate structure, just over $24 million. With the 15% increase, we are looking about $3.6 million of new revenue. Like Darren mentioned, that impact from capacity is right at about $3.6 million. And so how does that play out?
Well, Paul's saying 3.6. I showed 4.6. That's the total cost. We already had 1 million budgeted. So that's the difference. That's the 3.6. That's
Right.
why.
Yep, exactly right. So the residential rate currently sits at a customer charge of $23.25. That would increase to $25, and then the rest of the revenue needed from that class would be allocated to the usage charge. So going from about 9.9 cents to 11.7 cents per kilowatt hour. The average user here is specified in this table. We typically say that the average user uses around 1,200 kilowatt hours a month. And so they're looking at an increase of about $23, $24 a month. This is the residential outside city rate. Actually, a decrease suggested in the customer charge, same increase in the energy charge.
Why would we decrease outside the city?
So again, that's a great question. They looked at the entire system and each class and what current revenue we are proposed to generate from our current rate structure. They compared that to what it costs to actually serve each of those rate classes based on the financial situation that we're in. And so they determined that the customer charge that we had in place for customers that are outside city limits, which only generate about $108,000 of revenue, was not adequate. It was too high based on where it should have been to serve that class. And so we were able to bring it down. You can still see here, though, that based on the increase in the usage charge, this would project a 12.1 increase in revenue from that customer class. Does that make sense?
It does, but if you were going to raise the usage cost, it should be on non-city limit customers. The idea of us providing power to people that live outside of the city of Hannibal, some of them are close enough to be annexed into the city and refuse for various reasons, fireworks, shooting their gun off, whatever. I don't have a problem with their rates being higher than people that pay the city taxes and stuff. So I would much rather you see that stay at its current rate and not increase the rate for the city, or increase that rate. The option there is come into the city and save a lot on your utilities, which they would save significant.
Mm-hmm.
Or stay where you're at and pay the cost to have our utilities.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
As sitting here as the mayor, and I feel probably the city council feels the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather see our citizens in the city of Hannibal stay at the current rate or less. And if you're living outside the city, you're going to pay more. It's just the way it is everywhere.
We'll make that adjustment.
I can't speak for the board, but this board member agrees.
Mm-hmm. So our current schedule does have just a 40% surcharge on customers that are outside city limits. And so that's what this matches. So we'd have to change that first and then allocate the actual charge accordingly.
So, in other words, the city residents are gonna have a raise in rate, and those that live outside the city do not have a raise.
No,
They
it's,
still have a raise.
right, yep. So if we look here, this is inside city limits. The difference here in revenue is about 16.5%. It's just different sources.
However,
Yeah,
there should
slight.
be no rate increase in the city limits at all for the monthly charge. That should just be the same. But if you need a rate increase on that, you can add that to the
Go down
outside
to
the city
your-
limits,
go
or
down to
keep
your
it the
outside city
same. I mean,
limits.
you're looking at the same difference, $1.75.
And allocate more to
The
the
number
usage.
of
residents is what I think they're getting at for the difference.
I understand that.
But yeah,
I
Yes.
understand that.
but I
But
agree.
there's,
We will take your recommendation and we will make that happen. We'll do the adjustment on our policies and we'll bring that to you next week.
Right.
But you can still see that the commodity charge has also gone up appropriately.
there's obviously a huge difference with the amount of people that live outside the city limits that use our power than inside, but as with the city council, the Board of Public Works' main function is to take care of the people in the city limits of Hannibal.
This is per the consultant, so
I understand.
we're being
No, I
fully,
understand.
fully transparent.
Understand wholeheartedly.
Yep. Okay, commercial. Small change in the customer charge, and then the rest allocated to usage. That is for single-phase customers. Three-phase, no change in the customer charge, and a slightly greater change in the usage charge. I do also encourage those that are curious about what their impact specifically might be to call in, and they can ask for the last 2, 3, 4, 6 months, and we can look at what that new bill would look like going forward. Our customer service team would be happy to do that for anybody. This is the city service single phase rate, slightly greater increase in the customer charge to match the other commercial single phase rate.
What kind of business would that be?
Yeah, this is just two. This is the Molly Brown House and the Tourism Bureau only. And then we've got the three phases, the public library. Right here. So you can see the revenue from those, very small. And then we've got our area lighting, or the security lights that we offer, that we've charged $11 for a month. Those would increase to $12.54 monthly. Now, industrial does have a slightly larger percentage change in the fixed customer charge. The main reason for that is there's less base there to recover from. We have fewer industrial customers overall, and so the allocation is a bit more even between the customer charge, usage, and demand. Again, the revenue being generated from that class is still roughly the same of 14%.
And what companies would fall into this?
In industrial customers, any customer that uses 100 kW or more in a 12-month period. So we're looking at larger grocery stores, hotels, things like that. And then we have a large industrial rate, which is any customer that needs 1,000 kW. General Mills, Spartan, Wapo,
DC or Enduro.
Enduro.
Yes.
I think there's only 4, I believe. Yep. And that's this right here. Same allocation. Okay, and lastly, we have our water and wastewater plant rates. They did propose to implement a monthly customer charge as well of $200, and then the allocation there to usage and demand accordingly. So that is mirrored to the rate schedule you have in front of you. In addition, we talked about it last month, but we also have on there, make sure I didn't miss anything. We also have on there an increase to the maximum penalty for late utility payment from $20 to $50. We have an additional service charge for notification for extreme weather conditions. It's also known as a door tag. Increasing the customer requested service call outside regular hours from $80 to $100, and then implementing or including the meter tampering charges in the schedule of rates and fees. Those have always been included in an internal policy, but we've never actually included them on the schedule. The only other thing I have briefly, Darren mentioned it a couple times, so I wanted to go through it. This is a look at our historical cash reserves. We do present this monthly to the board. And so you can go all the way back here to 2007. You can see here somewhere in this time frame that we implemented a formal policy and began building that reserve fund based on those requirements set out in that policy. It was right around 2018 where UFS went in and looked at everything and changed some of the parameters with that policy and would have established the policy as it stands today. and that minimum that you saw of $13 million or so has stayed pretty consistent. And so we were right around that mark for a few years here. Darren mentioned it, but that is about a $5 million increase. That is exactly what represents the payment coming in for the diesel generators. That did not last long, as we saw the massive increase to capacity there in 2023 of $3.4 million, and so that brought the reserve back down. The reason it came down a little bit more than $3.4 million is we saw volatility in the energy market as well. You can see here our average LMP cost, or day-ahead cost that we pay, which stayed steady from 2015 right around $21 to $28. Well, we had a jump to $50 in 22 and 23. So not only did we get hit with the capacity in those 2 years, we also had an extremely volatile energy market as well.
Paul, does that equate to a $4 million swing? I mean, you're looking at your
In the
cash
energy-
reserve difference in that 18-month period of $7 million roughly.
Right here.
And so you're talking, from
Yeah.
June of 2022 down to, let's just pick, I don't know, August or September of 2023. I mean, that's a $7 million roughly
Yeah.
swing. You're talking 3.4 that we loaned.
Well, this from 18 to 13 was the 3.4. Plus, if we look here at our audit, we went from paying 14.9 million in purchase power. Let me blow this up. And then we saw that energy spike way up to $50, and so our purchase power, or sorry, this is 2022. We went from paying 12.8 million
To the 14.
12.8 million, and then to 2023. Uh-oh. I have to reload it. So then we saw a huge jump right there to 18.7 million. And so again, the year before, 12.8 million, $3.4 million in capacity, plus the additional, I guess it'd be about 2 to 3 million in energy, got us to the 18.7. That all came out of reserve. Because keep in mind, at that time, we didn't have any, we had a negative 1% growth in town, and so we didn't have any new revenue that was coming in to replenish that capacity in that volatile energy. And then the additional, what you're talking about here into July and August, that would have been another year of capacity. We paid Darren mentioned just over $2 million with, again, no revenue to replace it. And then we finally did the rate increase in October. Still had reserves coming down a little bit until those revenues started coming in. And so finally we started seeing revenues pick up here this summer where that reserve started to replenish. So I just wanted to lay that story out there because Darren had mentioned it, and we do look at that monthly. So hopefully that gives a little more color to that. Okay, I think that about does it for what obviously we have no action that we need to address tonight. We are required by city charter to adopt that new schedule of rates and fees at our September board meeting if we want them to take effect October 1st, because we have that between 30 and 15-day window.
And while that, there would be some increases that the city should get about 250,000 additional revenue because of the 5.5% that we pay.
So,
Paul, hang on a second.
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. And we can talk about this later too, but just to clarify, where you talked about that extended increase, I'm the $7 million difference swing, and you're telling me that 3.4 we loaned out of that reserve to pay this last time we had this spike. But in 2023, we raised the rates 9.5%.
Yep.
To cover that difference. Where did $7 million, where did $4 million extra dollars go?
Well, you want to pull that back up for me, please?
And I don't want to waste these people's time tonight. And so if you could give me some more insight on that, send that to me
Yeah, absolutely.
next couple days, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we can do that. Yep. I mean, the majority of it in here was all purchase power from capacity, 3.4 million, and the additional about 2 million in energy. And then we had an additional $2.2 million of capacity that we hedged. Because we hedged it, we had to pay it all up front. Okay, and so that brought the cash down right away as opposed to throughout the year. And so the additional 2.2 brought us down to the 11.
But you
As
never really see it come back. And
you never
raise the
really see it
rates 9.5%.
Absolutely, yep. So revenues for fiscal year '24 that we just wrapped up never did come out to be the level that we had budgeted. A lot of that was due to we had another extremely mild winter. We finally started seeing revenues, like I mentioned, maintain their budgeted levels right here in the summer when we started seeing that weather warm up. But part of the issue in doing that rate increase in October is that we don't get those higher revenue months unless we have a very severe winter, which we did not.
Paul will give you more detail, but don't forget that we used to pay that 60,000 to 300,000 for capacity. Now it's holding up around with 3.4 to 4.6. That too is still, that's what it's represented there. And that 9.5 helps hold us flat until we get hit again come October 1 with another capacity jump that goes from that 2 to the 4.6.
So October 1st is when you're,
No,
when it jumps to the higher rate, is that correct?
MISO planning year runs June 1st to May 31st. And so that summer season that they mentioned is June, July, and August.
Right.
And then that big jump in the fall will be September 1st. And so the next few invoices that we get, we'll start to see
You're going to see a
substantial
dip.
increase.
You're going to see a dip in our revenues until that comes into play.
But let me ask you this. You talked about earlier in your presentation. So the electric auction that was yearly is now quarterly.
Yes.
So when you show the numbers up there where you're looking at $30 for the summer and 75 cents for the winter and $716, like, so that's for this fall and next spring. Well, if they're doing it quarterly, how do you know what that's going to be?
They do an annual auction based on the seasons. It's a quarterly construct. In other words, they're looking, what they used to do was one time during the auction, they looked at the one time a year that was the worst. They're now looking at each season, summer, fall, winter, spring, and they're looking at the worst day of each of those, and they're doing their own internal auction, but those numbers are then given, like I showed, we've got all those four, that we know what they are. That's that quarter, that's the seasonal construct that they're doing. So we still will know come May what the next year is going to hit.
Why is zone 5 higher, so much higher than all the rest of the zones?
Because we went from not enough generation versus demand. It used to be this way. Everybody else, the way they had theirs planned, what's on paper, everything else, it shows that they have enough generation versus demand. Zone 5 went this way, and it was mainly because you had one major coal plant that was taken offline, and that the others, and so we get our power. So one of the things that we were blessed with is that we have Prairie State, which is in Marissa, Illinois. That's in Zone 4. They said we got credit for that because we've been with it long enough. We had a long enough contract that they said, okay, that's secure, we're going to give you credit. If we hadn't gotten credit for that, we'd be up around the 7.4 million. So Marissa, again, that Prairie State, it's saved our bacon.
Now, I know you and I have talked about another main reason for this being Ameren dipping their hands into this pie that they didn't have access to for a while. And Ameren, of course, is large utilities. You had spoken about talking to other people in the same predicament in other cities. And looking at legal ways to challenge that. Are we still?
Yes, we
full
are.
force?
Yes, we are. So if you want, do your homework, go look up PJM. The article that I just showed, they kind of went through and did a very good job of showing what are the weaknesses in the PJM capacity market. And it laid out many of the same things that we got hit with. Well, all of PJM is going to sue, and you end up going to FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We're looking at any revenue avenue that we can to make this right. And so we are involved in some legal things. If it were to come to fruition, we got any relief, that would be passed directly to the citizens. And so we're hoping that there is some of that coming around.
Are you looking at any other increase other than the electric rate, water, sewer? Are you looking at that, or are we holding off on that until after the first of the year?
So according to the GAC, we should do a 3% increase in water. I think I'm gonna talk to the board about holding off on that and postponing it for a year.
All right, thank you for the roll-up of the finance part of it. We have some people signed up for asking questions. Some have already, but Bob, did you have anything in addition?
Are all the meters, have they been replaced?
Yes.
Why is there $1.25 increase on meter when we aren't having to send somebody out to the houses to read them?
The customer charge has been analyzed by this group, I can't remember their name, and that customer charge includes the wire that goes from where it comes into our system, the cost burden of the transformer that takes 67,000 volts down to the next step, the intermediate transformer that does the next step down, the wires that take it from there to your house that changes it from 3,000 volts down to 240 volts. So it's not just one little thing. It's the analysis by customer class of that whole combination of things from A to Z to get the first drop of electricity into your house. So that whole group of things was analyzed by whatever that name is and decided that the fair way to do it is to put a small cost burden on top of it just to justify.
Basically, the advancement is costing us more money than what it costs to have somebody go out and read our meters.
When you say advancement, what do you mean?
Buy these automated meters.
Well, the automated meters is one small part of the whole infrastructure that makes up the cost. So identifying one of those 50
But
items.
It's identified as a meter charge, adding $1.25 to the meter charge.
It should be called something else.
Customer service charge.
On your bill, you'll see it as a customer charge.
Yeah. Yeah, there was some confusion a few meetings ago about that same thing. But yeah, the SCADA automatic over-the-air meter reading has definitely saved by not having to have people go out and read meters, and that's all been baked into the efficiencies that the whole that online electronic system has provided.
So it's paying more for the whole SCADA opposed to the meter.
So not necessarily the SCADA, but all of the infrastructure that takes to get it from where it comes into the city through the transformations and the wires and the poles and all that stuff and into your house.
You know, and I'd go back to, you look at that inflation, I think we've done a very good job of keeping things flat as we can, and almost everything that we've hit now is that capacity, which is purchase power. And so inflation has still hit us. We've got that, 130%. I mean, we've got a lot of things. Everything's gone up. Transformers that have gone up by 4 times. And we're still, I think, again, we've had efficiencies that we're holding on to, we're looking for more. And we've gotten to that breaking point. We've got to make the addition for the purchase
You may want
of
to address,
power.
without taking everybody back there, but the IT involved. You talked about IT and what's involved, but what you've got in the back room there, what you have the capability of doing, to let these people know.
That math, we do, please tell us more. I can't, I'm drawing a blank as to what you're thinking of.
You're monitoring system.
Oh,
back
okay.
there.
There's a vast difference between SCADA and.
Well, yeah,
and
but
automated meters.
I'm just talking IT and what else is involved in
We-
just what you've got in the back room. Most of these people sitting in here don't know how advanced that has become.
It is. All right, Bob, did you have anything else?
No.
I just want to keep formal with the people
Yes.
who made a list, and the next one up is Wesley Neff. I think it's Wesley.
Wesley Neff?
Okay, so last year, basically, we went from we had a 9.5 increase, and now we're talking 15. Okay, so in essence, to somebody like me, we're talking 25% increase in a year. And now we're talking, I guess, you know, I'm a pretty simple guy. And I moved back to Hannibal a couple years ago because this is where I grew up. This is where I wanted to bring my family. And I'm, for somebody like me, I know that and I appreciate everything that you guys do. And I understand that things are out of your control. But me as a person, things are out of my control. The cost of groceries for me to feed my family is out of control. Everything is completely out of control. I can't find a full-time nurse for my daughter. It's out of my control. Now I'm trying to figure out, we've been trying to figure out from paycheck to paycheck anyway, but now it increases to me that I have another increase that I have to take care of. So now I truly have to consider the fact of, do I put my wife to work? Because now I literally have a daughter that is 14 that shouldn't have made it past 10. So, and I cannot keep a full-time nurse. I've been trying since 2016. There's a shortage of them. It's out of my control. And I don't have people that can just come over and take care of my daughter, just because of the complexity of everything that's going on. So I just want everybody to know it's difficult. This is beyond stinks. And then now that, I have to make sure that that's paid, and forgive me for, and I've never been one of those, but now you're telling me that if I'm running into hard times, that now I'm going to increase if I'm past due on my bill in my hardship. And it more than stinks. I'm not a person that uses a lot of words, and to me this is word, but it flat out, it sucks. And it sucks for people like me. And it sucks for people like me who are not only doing that, but we're trying to help those that are less fortunate, even more so. And I guess there's really not a question, it's just, everybody keeps saying 15%, to me it's 25% in a year. And I don't have the option to go to my employer and say, well, my electric increased, gotta have a raise. I don't have those options, and it's not really so much a question as much as my statement as far as many of us who are just working. I mean, we're just busting honey. And the last thing I really want to do is, my family has succeeded here very well, as far as my children at school, as far as the way how they get along, how they socialize. And the last thing I want to do is, just out of stupid stuff like this, have to somehow have some move. And I think that's what a lot of it comes down to. Because I paid a whole lot less than candy.
I simply tell you, I'm sorry. Like, you see what we're facing. We feel like we're in a corner. Would you please come? So you're not the only one. What you have voiced is common. We've seen it on the internet. We've seen a lot of people. Thank you. You voiced it well. Please come see us. There's things that perhaps we can help. NECAC, some other things that are available out there that you might qualify for to help ease the burden.
Have you talked to some of those associations like NECAC for those disconnect fees? When they go to help people, sometimes they require disconnect notice. And have you informed them, those associations, that that's going to be increased?
Have we done that? No, not yet.
Because that would definitely go into their
Impact.
budget pretty deeply as well.
Right. It
Yeah.
factors into the amount that they're able to offset.
I understand the increase, but also, as a gentleman just said, is the burden of the late fee when you're already a little behind and something like that, and the person's getting a little behind in life, and doubling that burden while they already have that bill and everything else piling, that's pretty tough. How much revenue would be seen from that increase projected? Any rough numbers?
We don't have any rough numbers. We have about $148,000 of late payment penalty revenue annually.
All right, Mr. Duff, thank you very much. And next up is Lenny Rosenkrantz.
Okay, I just want to thank you all for making an incredibly complicated situation a little less complicated, not simple. And what I'd originally come here was the larger customer increase that is now not happening, so I'm glad to hear that. So the only comment I have now is, I think it's a lot of times it's the 10, it's the 15% that's more of a problem. That really gets people's eye. And I know your revenue's going down 1% a year, but there were several years where you didn't raise it at all, right? And everybody thought that was great. But what happens is now you have to raise it 15 because you got behind. And if you had done 3 or 4% a year, and that's what I'm seeing on this, your projected inflation at 3.5, so we're going to see 3.5 a year. We probably should, even if you start building up your reserves. But, that's part of looking ahead. So we're not blindsided. I only hope that the capacity thing goes down as fast as it went up, because you can see it's a lot of times it's a short-term thing. I don't know, different situations. That's all I have.
All righty, thank you very much. We do have monthly meetings that everybody's welcome to come see, and detailed accounting and where everything goes and where it comes from. And the assurance that we got from the staff here, if the purchase power demand goes down in the next foreseeable future, you will see, and if we don't take the rates down, you'll see our reserves go way up. And that's something that we also watch. We don't want to make it look like our reserves are getting too big. And if our costs go down, just like if you go to the gas station has to buy a tanker full of gas, and whatever the price is that they get, they have to change the pump. It's kind of what we're doing here. And if a year from now, our costs go down, the BPW's costs go down, the distribution costs will stay about the same, and they'll pass along the price reduction. That's what I heard as a commitment already, so I think that's good. I don't see any reason why we couldn't open up to anybody who didn't put their name on the list. So if anybody's got any questions or comments, sir. Oh. All right. Yes.
I think rate increases sound like that's gonna happen no matter what.
I'm sorry, what is your name?
Nathan Miller.
Okay, thank you.
What I take issue with is the increase in the extra fees, like we discussed with the decrease in outside residents compared to the inside city residents. Or that goes up, the other one comes down. That should be reflecting where citizens have the priority. The other thing is, if you're increasing the disconnect fees or late fees, you're increasing hardship on on those that are already struggling. And current trends, if they continue the same way, that's gonna continue to rise. We've seen people, I mean, like, everything's going up. Everything is going up, except wages. You know, and so I would like to find a better solution for that.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
I was just wondering.
what was your name?
My name's Rebecca Roman.
Okay.
I know that you guys have like a customer care fund, is that right? Where people can donate extra money to help cover people who can't pay their bill, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so how often is that being utilized? Is there something that we need to be doing to increase that to help customers, like the gentleman over there that needs help? And do your late fees, do they ever get waived? Like if someone has, say, a stellar payment history and something comes up and they're late for the first time in, say, 6 months, do you guys ever take that into consideration?
So 2 questions there. Yeah, the first one, the Share and Care program, that goes into a fund and it averages about $127 to $130 a month. And then in addition to that, 10% of our late payment revenue monthly goes into that fund as well. And then we submit that monthly to Douglas Community Services, who then uses that to help families out in need. And so that revenue from the 10% late payment and the Project Share and Care averages about $2,600 a month that Douglas receives. So obviously with the potential increase in the late payment penalty, there would be an associated increase in that as well. Your second question was what again?
Do we waive?
Do you ever waive late fees based on like payment history? So if somebody comes up on some sort of crisis and they're late for the first time and they've had a stellar payment history, do you guys ever waive those fees?
Yes. Yep. We always encourage anyone that sees that on their bill and was not expecting it to call in, just to make sure that they understand, that sometimes the dates can be confusing. Something falls on a weekend, something like that. So always call in, ask the CSR, the customer service representative, and they can explain it to you why it was there. If they're able to look back and see that you do have an excellent payment history, it was just a mistake, something happened, then they are able to take care of that accordingly.
You bet.
I didn't know we did that to Douglas.
We give it to Douglas. Douglas really administers it, so we're not making decisions on that part. We provide the funding and they can go and get, we encourage from NECAC, Douglas, whatever, we've got a list of things that people can go to get assistance.
It's a roundup on your bill, am I correct?
Yes, if you opt into it, yeah, it rounds it up, correct.
Interesting. Thank you for that, Richard. Anybody else? Yes, Melissa.
I'd like to say this information compared to what I feel like I had a week or 2 weeks ago is vastly different and a very welcome great news. I just wanted to verify, you said the fall season had started September, October, November, so we're paying $719.81 right now?
Yes, ma'am.
As of September 1st, we started paying $719.81.
Yeah, but MISO bills us 2 weeks in arrears, and so we won't see that first actual bill to where we'll have to pay it for another 2 weeks. But yes, we have seen that. It's about $2 million for the fall season.
Okay, but we've already seen the increase. We've already seen.
It's happening, we haven't seen it.
Yeah, so well, on that first invoice that we get that represents September operating dates, it will have that increase.
The utility will be paying that amount.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anyone else?
I'd like to speak
Yeah,
if
go ahead.
everybody else is done. I'll be the bad guy. Well, I don't know how you want to look at it. I have a couple quick questions. The report is preliminary on the costs,
Yeah,
so we don't have a complete report back.
correct.
So the issue, and
Well, not that it's incomplete. I would say that they would prefer to give it another level of review. They put it together fairly quickly than what would be normal for them. So it's not that it's incomplete, it's just preliminary.
Sure. So the first time that I have laid eyes on it was tonight with everyone else in this room. I take issue to that. Number one, you came up with this and have already started promoting it and telling businesses and people in the community this is what the rate's going to be. We had some heated exchange earlier about what we posted online versus what it shows right now, and that's correct. I'm looking at the paperwork from the last meeting and things like that. You didn't even have the rate study back before we posed all these numbers, and then you asked the board to come in and give you this 15, 16% rate increase and not give us any information to study, not give us any information to share with the public. Do you see an issue with that? And still you want us to come next Monday and approve this. I haven't dug into this. They brought up good points about in the city and out of the city. There's a lot to look at. And I think that we're putting the cart ahead of the horse. I believe that we should either look at, and this is my opinion, not the board's, this is my personal opinion, a small rate increase on the electric to get us through the next couple months, see where that price auction is going to be in the spring. And then if we do continue to see that trend up, because if you look at all your trends from the years past, this is an outlier. This year is the highest it's ever been. If it continues to trend that way, then we do come back to the public and say, hey, we have a serious problem. This isn't just a one-off. We really have to discuss a large rate increase. I think we have to tighten our belt financially. We have to come up with more ways to cut cost here, to save money, and all the fees and everything, I'm 100% opposed to. This is my opinion. If we're forced to vote on it at the meeting on Monday, I'm a hard no. We need to do more research. We need to have time to digest the report as the board and share with the public, take additional questions from the public, the council, or anybody that affects, make sure we have our heads wrapped around it, and then decide what we need to do for a rate increase. I just am adamant about that, and I can't fathom being in city government and county government, how we're even to this point where we don't have that study in front of us. And you want us 7 days from now to approve this increase that's going to affect everybody in this room. I'm not in. That's all.
The issue of the $719 has been around since the minute that these guys found out that it happened. And we have had a board meeting and we know that that's coming, and that number has been out there. I got a phone call the afternoon. The next week we had a board meeting about it. So those big increased numbers have been out there. And the calculations to figure out those big increases and what revenue needs to come in, excuse me, to make that up, that's been out there. So let's say that it's been a big glaring light for 95% of the reason that we have to have the increase. What you're taking issue with is the result of a study that reanalyzed costs for the customer charge. Is it $27.50 or is it $30? That's the difference between the known amount that we've got and the additional rebalancing of the cost and revenue production from this study that's coming out. So if your main issue is that small per customer adjustment has kind of been hidden because that study is not 100% buttoned up, I can see that. But in fact, the majority of the reason for this big thing has been known to me since the afternoon that it happened. And don't ask me exactly what the days were, but it's been through at least one board meeting, maybe two. And those are already set up for the next calendar year. We did a yearly, we got the yearly rates, and the fact that it's not steady through that whole year, 365 days out, happens to be a function of the way that we're having the prices shoved down our throats. quarter one is this, quarter two is 700, whatever, quarter three is down, quarter four is 719 or whatever. Those are known. So the 95% of the reason and the need for the increase is there. It's hard. It's not going down. And that's the contract coming up for the next year. I just want to shed light on the fact that it's there. We knew about it as soon as it happened. Darren considered it a huge emergency, and we covered it first.
I mean,
So
I-
my
sorry.
guess, my question would be, so you at the last board meeting knew that there was going to be a 15% increase to customers.
I knew that the costs of power that the BPW has to purchase has gone up in one of the categories of the way that we get rated. One went from 95 cents to $719. So it's like, oh my goodness, there's going to be a huge increase. So the fact that we have to pay for power with 3 line items, and they accounting have to figure out how to take that one line item that just went crazy and average it so that we can charge per kilowatt hour instead of taking your electric bill and slicing the electric charge up into 3 different pieces, and then you have your customer charge. That would make things just impossibly complicated. So,
I understand what he's saying. He didn't have time to digest and look into this, and I don't see where really anybody has. I mean, I know that you said there was gonna be a significant increase, but you didn't know what it was gonna be. So you've known that there was gonna be a significant for at least one board meeting, and now you're sitting here at this board meeting saying, okay, this is what it's gonna have to be. Next week, we're gonna vote on this, and in a matter of weeks, we're gonna throw it out to the customer.
well, when you,
I mean,
for the last 9 days, the cost of electricity has gone up, and we're going to get the bill for it. I mean, it's not like, we can table it for 2 months. It's happening right now. The charges are being accrued right now. Don't have to write the check for a couple of weeks, but the costs are accruing. We know the invoice is going to be way up there. Now, is it going to be 13% after you do the mix of the 3 things? Is it going to be 14? Is it going to be, we had discussed a number of different percentages, but by the time the accounting goes through all the sequences and they're trying to match up what the revenue needs to be with the increased cost, along with the reduction of the reserves that we pulled out from a number of months ago when we had a different surprise. It's just a lot of math gymnastics, and the computers are whirring and whizzing in the background, and you put in one scenario. So the vast majority of the biggest increases, we knew it was going to have to come out. 14.2, 15%, 13.8. That number has been a moving target up until probably a couple of weeks ago, and now they've kind of settled on the 15%. And I don't want to sound like, oh yeah, we're going to have to do whatever they say. But the math doesn't change when you start dividing those increases across all the customer base and all the different categories. I don't hope that helps.
And I understand that. I'm not trying to get nasty
No.
or negative, but, once again, I don't get to go back to my reserves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get to go back to my savings account.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know, to come here tonight and pretty much find out this is kind of what we're hit at.
When we got these capacity charges back in May, when we revised our budget, we talked about a 15.8% increase at that time. That was made known at the board meeting. It's been discussed at every board meeting since then. Because of our requirements by the charter, we have to have the public meeting 30 days before, no less than 15 days before, is why we're here tonight. But this is something that has been discussed since our budget was approved back in May.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly when it came, but it's been a couple of board meetings that I've known about it anyway.
So Paul, I think you just explained this, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. When exactly will we be starting to pay this $715
Oh, on the capacity.
on the capacity?
Yeah, so September 1st,
Okay, September 1st.
that started the fall capacity season.
And we'll get billed.
And it will get billed 2 weeks in arrears. And so it'll be Wednesday, September 18th at about 3:30 in the morning, we will get a bill that reflects that higher capacity. And so the funds will actually come out of our account that same day, Wednesday, September 18th.
And October 1st, if it's approved, that's when it'll start being put on people's bills. And then not until probably November, we'll start receiving the revenues from the rate increases.
Is
Yep.
that 715, is that a set in stone number? Can that fluctuate at all?
Right, so that's why we initially associated all of it to the fixed cost, because it is fixed based on the previous year's capacity. However, UFS disagreed with that in saying that you can control your capacity through the usage, which, depends on how you look at it, but yeah, I think we agree with that. But yes, it is fixed for the current planning year, and they do that auction annually.
Would it be a possibility that rather than increase it 15% right now, that we did it, divide that quarterly, or like start 3% and then 5%, or is that too much to consider?
What happens, so don't forget, we still are trying to meet our covenants. So if we meet, one thing we didn't discuss is what's the harm of us not meeting that covenant? We've for 2 years now not met that covenant. If the bondholders of that were to litigate it, they have a couple of things. Number one, they could grab the assets. Everything that we put up as collateral, that could be seized by the bondholders. That would not be good. I think they could probably take that, do a fire sale, and sell it to someone, and I think that's a consideration, not a good one. They will also take and market our bond rating, which would then change the amount that we're paying on that debt as well. That would go up. I believe that if we default on that, it is not only our own ability to borrow monies, but it also is an influence upon the city and the city's ability to influence that. What else have I missed? What else can happen if we default on that?
Yeah, because we have adequate cash reserves, there isn't concern in us paying debt service in the near term. But the reason those rate covenants are put in place is so that you have a guaranteed method of paying it into the future, right? And so the most likely scenario, according to our bond counsel, is that they would retain outside legal counsel, like Darren mentioned, to come in and basically do the same thing that UFS has already done, to put you on a track that you have no say over. It's mandated, and we would have to pay for that legal counsel to come in and do that. Obviously, very expensive and very detrimental, because that would also likely come with a new bond rating, which would lead to higher interest in any future debt that we went out to get, and would affect the city's bond rating as well, like you mentioned.
So deferring this now to breaking it down would end up costing us more money later down the road.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That's not
Yes.
true. That's not true.
That's not
That's
true.
blatantly not true.
So I just wanted, the debt ratio is not bad, because we went from 19 million in reserves down to 11 something now. The debt ratio is because you're spending 18 million, taking in 12 million, and the revenue has to match the spending on the electric. So that's what I believe Paul was saying earlier, even if we build up the reserve, that would not help, because the debt ratio, again, it's not because we went to 19 to 1, it's because you have to be taking in the revenue, what you're spending out on electric to meet
Yes, you're right on the money. That's exactly right. It's a measure of revenue to debt, and it's not, reserve is not considered revenue. So it is.
And Kelly, to both Daryl and Darren's and Paul's issues. So what Darren and Paul were talking about with the bondholders and stuff are a possible outcome if they decided they wanted to come after the board because the bond rating drops below. The chances of that happening are slim because there's a lot of other bonded companies and people out there with bonds that are far worse off than we are. But to that point, it's a government entity. You never know what they're going to do. So base your thoughts not on possibilities and whatever could possibly happen, but what you feel, and I'm talking to the entire board, what you feel you can do and what is fair over the next 6 months, the next year, to the citizens of Hannibal. Because you are here to watch over them and watch over the money that you receive from their taxes and from their payments and stuff, just like the city council. It's your job to do your best to help the citizens of Hannibal, the people that pay the electric bills and the taxes and your wages and stuff. So when you're thinking about this, and you've got to come back Monday, what you guys decide Monday, if you decide to put it off for another week so you can investigate more or whatever, spend your time between now and then thinking about what you can do to best serve the community of Hannibal. And bear in mind, being good stewards of the Board of Public Works falls under that. Okay, it's not just, how you can help people not have a rate increase or a smaller one or whatever, but it's also being a good steward of the entire Board of Public Works, because this is us. This is the city of Hannibal. We own this. This is what provides electricity and water and sewer and whatever to the city. So you have to be good stewards of that. You have to be good stewards of everything that comes in. I tell this to the city council all the time. The money that comes to us from the people that live in this city, in this community. They work here, they drive our roads, their kids go to school, they shop at our grocery stores, they get gas at gas stations, they get their hair done at salons. They are the community. So it's in your best interest to think long and hard about what you're doing and weigh every option that you can. If we can cut it back, let's cut it back. If we can't, we have to look. We have to do our due diligence. That's exactly what it is. And I have nothing but praise for Darren and Paul for all the information that they put out there for people to see, because that's their job. That's what they get paid for. Your job is infinitely much harder. Your job is to decide whether or not we should have a 15% increase, an 8% increase, a 10%. It's your decision. The four of you right there get to decide that. So you need to think about everything that you've looked at and weigh everything that goes into it. This is coming on the heels of the school board deciding they want to throw 14.7% increase at us with no vote of the citizens. Liberty Gas is going to throw another price increase at us at the first of the year.
32.5% is what
32.5%.
I'm hearing.
So there are a lot of things going on.
So
We have an election in November that's gonna decide a lot of things.
And we still have stormwater is,
You see exactly what it is. People are at that point. I see that at the grocery store every day. I see people put stuff back every day because this is the amount of money they have to spend, and that's it. Not a dime more. And the citizens of Hannibal, they're at that point. And like I said, I've not ran into that issue as mayor and council yet on anything. There's things that we could have done. We haven't had a real estate or property tax increase since 1973. And we thought about it, but it doesn't bring the needle to where it needs to be. It would just be taking more money for not really a cause. So when you think about this, think about everything. Don't just think about how much we have to pay for electricity coming to us. Think about how much the people in town are gonna have to pay. So those all weigh into your decisions. I was disappointed and kind of taken aback at a recent meeting where everybody was together and a person pointed out that, well, we can always pass this along to the ratepayer. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. They're not a cash cow. So I won't talk anymore. I know you guys got things to do. We all do. So that's what I'm leaving you with is think long and hard about everything you're thinking about. And these guys here do their job because that's what they're paid to do. They look at numbers. That's their job. And they're going to give you the information. It's up to you to decide what to do.
For clarification, I just want to make sure I'm correct on this from both sides of the aisle, so we're in compliance with the charter. This board, governing board, can raise rates anytime.
Yes.
They can raise rates every single month as long as you complied with the meeting requirements and had the public meetings and everything like that. So my point to the citizens, my fellow board members, is with all these other increases looming, let's break it down. Let's go a couple months. Let's see what we got, what it actually looks like, and adjust accordingly instead of one big chunk. And I understand and I appreciate Darren and his staff talking about, reducing those costs if this happens or if that happens. Well, instead of shooting for the moon and then hoping that it happens and hoping we get a reduction, let's stair step to where we need to be. And if we do wind up having to be there at the end, we did our due diligence. We did everything in our power to minimize the hurt as long as we can.
And that is your job.
So
right there in a nutshell.
the debt service, like you said, it is what it is. It needs to be rectified sooner rather than later. But we can't mismanage our money or spend money that we don't have and then just expect the ratepayers to cover the difference so we can get back within our 1.2 rating. So, and that's not a reflection of, and I don't mean that to be a reflection of Darren or Paul. I think that there's things that have happened over the course of many, many years that got us to where we are. But
Real quick, I don't know, a lot of people don't remember, but probably 25 years ago, Hannibal was considered a jewel because our utilities were just low. They were just low. We didn't pay much for electric, we didn't pay hardly anything for water. But what happened? It stayed that way forever, and nobody looked to the future. And then all of a sudden, everything turned on a dime. We had tens of millions of dollars in reserve. We had to go into that to get everything in line, and then we had rate increase after rate increase after rate increase because we got caught. So doing your due diligence is exactly what these guys are doing. So think about it. Think long and hard about what you want to do and how you wanna do it, because it's your decision.
I
All right, Ms. Snow.
One last thing to
Yeah.
say, and I appreciate the fact that you brought that up about May. And if it has to be 15%, I get it. You know, I know how the world is right now, and I don't hold anything against, I wouldn't wanna have to do what you all are doing, okay? But maybe in the future, we could, now that I know that you can increase at any time, maybe in the future, when we see something in May, maybe we need to talk about raising it a little bit much sooner than when September. I mean, if we have that idea that we may have that, maybe we start doing stuff way sooner instead of just bam, 15%, right? You know, talk about it in June, July, and start getting that. I appreciate what y'all do, and thank you.
Right. Yes.
I think the one bright spot that came out of the night was what was published before was gonna double the, customer charge. It was a fixed charge that nobody would have control of. We pared that back to $1.75, which is, I think, much appreciated, because what we did, we went to the other side, to charge on the electric that everybody does have control of. So, you know, you can turn back the thermostat, turn the lights on, you know, turn things off that you don't need to use. So you do have control of that. So I hope people will look at that and appreciate, you know, what did happen. So, I thank you for that.
I was wondering, I looked at getting solar panels on my roof about a year ago. And the reason I didn't is because if I were to generate excess energy, I can't sell it back to the Board of Public Works. Is that still a thing, or is that something you guys can look into?
No, you can. Yeah, you can sell it back.
It can be sold back?
Yes. Yep. Yes, we can.
Okay. So is the city looking at doing any type of renewable energy?
We are. We've got a project. We're looking at the airport. We're trying to move that forward. A couple of megawatts. What happens is it's behind the meter, which would help us just simply, we would take that generation and we would share it equally with every kilowatt sold. So it might bring down your kilowatts by, you know, a little smidgen, but it would bring it down some. And that's, yes, we are looking at doing that. So.
You might mention, you know, for these people, you know, the agreement you got with, Greenbelt, if it ever comes to.
We have an agreement with Grainbelt for 15 megawatts of power. And the price of that is exceptionally good. It's very competitive and would help bolster that purchase of that electricity. It wouldn't do anything for our capacity, but it would be, it's something that will truly be a benefit to all of us and help us bring prices down if and when it gets here. But we're still looking at they're optimistic if it's by 2028 and more realistic 2030 or beyond. So, and again, it's all that legal things going on, the NIMBY, not in my backyard, people have really pushed it out. But again, that's one of those things, if you talk to your state legislator to say, we would like this to happen, please, you know, make it a positive, that would be a good voice.
One thing I'd like to bring to attention to, and I mean, I appreciate the fact that we want to keep the rates as low as we can, as long as we can. But the concern I have is we have already spent this $4.6 million. And if we delay this rate increase, that just gets that much shorter of a time period to recoup that cost. And so I'm concerned that if we put off this 15% rate increase now for an 8 or a 10% in December or January, when we decide we still have to raise this amount of money, now we're looking at a 20 or 25% rate increase.
Explain your math on that.
That's what I
We
was.
already spent the capacity for the next year.
Right,
So
but if you're
until
telling me
May-
you need 15%, we only do half of it now, you're telling me 3 months later, it's gonna double?
15%, we've got to collect $3.6 million.
No, or we have to come up with $3.6 million.
We've got to come up with $3.6 million. The proposed rate increase that we've got keeps us in compliance with our debt covenant as part of our lease. If we collect that $3.6 million over 9 months, that rate increase is a lot less than if we collected over 6 months. So you could be hitting people in the worst time of the year with a higher rate increase.
Yeah, it's definitely a math problem. It's not, and it's not a politics problem either. Anybody who's owned and operated a business, you have expenses and you have to charge for it, and if you don't charge for it, you're closing your doors. But in this case, our rate, or our bond covenant for the ratios change, which is not good. But anyway, owner and operating a business is, a lot different than dealing with the, taxing, political taxing body, which I wouldn't want to be a part of. Anyway, anybody else have any questions? If not, we'll need.
A couple of other potentials that are not nice to look at. I have a granddaughter going to school in Maryville, and they have certain hours of the day where their rates skyrocket, trying to reduce the amount of electricity that the community is using. And so that's a negative that we wouldn't want. Some other communities are having rolling blackouts to save, and we definitely don't want that either.
True fact.
I talked to the city administrator for a day in his zone 5, and we're not seeing the increase that we're seeing, so, that's just how odd things are.
They're probably fine from a couple of.
You've got some that are, it varies. All of it, there's that portfolio we've got, because we have Prairie State, that helped us a bunch with capacity. There's several that are
I believe that
indifferent.
utility in Vandalia also raises their rates every month based on market trend. So those customers unfortunately do not have a set rate every month to go off of.
Y'all are getting a little defensive, I just said. All I said was, I
From 11 cents is not a bad rate.
The things that we
Or
were seeing
Missouri.
right now. I said, lucky you, I'm jealous.
What are their rates? That's the thing. If they're paying 13 cents,
Well, there's
looking
very
at
few
11,
municipalities
11.7.
left. And the reason there's very few municipalities left is because very few communities continue to pay the O&M of operating a city-owned municipality, and that's the truth of it, that nobody wants to talk about.
Okay, I guess to wrap this up, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Melissa, do you have to do the same thing? Okay.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.